I think one of the most interesting and wonderful parts of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings are the creatures of the Ents. The concept of there being a shepherd of the forest that began to slumber and turn tree-like themselves as the age of the elf and the dwarf and the dragon and magic began to fade away into modern history, so too did the Ents begin to sleep and become the trees we see around us. I wanted to reflect on Tolkien's work, specifically that of the Ents, today, and go over a little of Tolkien's poetry. I have here some Highland whiskey, tobacco, that I got from the Minnesota Renaissance Festival. And I thought I'd light a pipe and read a little Tolkien poetry this evening as the twilight begins to loom in this forest. The song of the Ents, as depicted in Lord of the Rings, has this really beautiful melancholy spirit to it, because it's about the loss of the Entwives and how they expect never to be reunited, but still hope to do so. As the story goes, the Ents favored the more wild and chaotic Fanghorn forest, whereas the Entwives preferred to tend gardens and orchards and fields, and so they left. I think from what I read, they made their way southeast to the rough area of the nation of Gondor. And I like this reflection on the matter from Tolkien, where he says, "I think that in fact the Entwives had disappeared for good, being destroyed with their gardens in the War of the Last Alliance, when Sauron pursued a scorched earth policy and burned their land against the advance of the allies down the Anduin." So, in that way, it does seem like the Entwives are gone, and shortly after the War of the Ring, the Ents begin to all slumber as well. Definite notes of Highland and whiskey. When spring unfolds the beechen leaf and sap is on the bough, when light is on the wildwood stream and wind is on the brow, when stride is long and the breath is deep and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say my land is fair. Then the response from the Entwife: when spring is come to garth and field and corn is on the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is on the orchard laid, when sun and shower upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I'll linger here and will not come, because my land is fair. When summer lies upon the world and in a noon of gold, beneath the roof of sleeping leaves the dreams of trees unfold, when woodland halls are green and cool and wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best. When summer warms the hanging fruit and burns the berry brown, when straw is gold and ear is white and harvest comes to town, when honey spills and apple swells, though wind be in the west, I'll linger here beneath the sun, because my land is best. When winter comes, the winter wild, that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in the bitter rain, I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again. When winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bough and light and labor past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain. And then they both together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest. And I think what's really beautiful with that piece is just how they both prefer their own forest, their own land, and they just seek a little validation from the other. They want the other to see value in their home and want them to come and join them. At least that's my reading. And then, of course, in the end, talking about going away into the West, coupled with what we know about the ring bearers and the elves who all leave Middle-earth into the West, seems to be the passing on of things into myth, into afterlife, into the heaven beyond, and the great land beyond the sea. Wonderful, wonderful poem. And what's more, there's this very, very talented musical group on YouTube called Clamavi de Profundis, Latin, I think. And they have this just amazing mosaic of songs from Lord of the Rings and other properties that they've written melodies for and composed and recorded and sung and performed together as a group. They've done this song as well. I think it's remarkably beautiful, and I will be sure to link that in this description. I recommend you check out their channel. Their music is one of the most extraordinary renditions of Tolkien's poetry I've ever heard. And on a twilight like tonight, I think couples perfectly with the general reflection in the forest about the Ents and the Entwives. So I hope you enjoyed the poetry this evening, and I encourage you, if you can, to take some time to go out into a place of nature near you and just sit in the stillness of the trees and remember the story of the Ents and the Entwives.